Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Old Trafford, where the rain is falling. It's been a very poignant day at Old Trafford. There was some beautiful commemorations of Sir Bobby Charlton and indeed in the blue corner of Francis Lee. And then a derby match, Gary, which from a Manchester United perspective was all too stark.
Yeah, we've seen it before. I thought they started quite well. That first 5 or 6 minutes was bright. I came to the game against Copenhagen here on Tuesday night and saw a really poor performance first half, and then did a little bit better in the second half. And got a little bit lucky in the end. But you're thinking if they don't up their performance levels a lot, they're going to really struggle against Manchester City. And after about 5-6 minutes, Bernardo Silva started to play, and United, I have to say, suffered. They suffered, and then I personally, and you know, people will be sat at home, maybe watching this, maybe not watching this, thinking, well, I would say that I'm a Manchester United fan. Don't look at it like that at all. It's a penalty. It's a penalty. I think that incident happens lots and lots of times, every single match, where a player just sort of, it was one of them where you grab and then you go. And Rodri can't fall over there in terms of naturally. He knows what's happening. He's a clever player. He's then gone to the referee, and to be fair, VAR have bought it. And I think it's a really soft one, and they can have a complaint about that, United, because at 0-0 the game's still there. They had a couple of chances in the first half. City were by far the better team, don't get me wrong, but that first goal was important, and at half-time you thought, well, it could have been 2-0, they could have gone ahead even further if they really stepped up against City, but they didn't. They almost let United off, but the second half was stark. Yeah, that was really poor.
From a City point of view, and really they're the ones deserving, of course, of a lot of praise, there's just certainty about them, isn't there? They just reduce all the jeopardy and know what they're doing and do it.
I mean, look, I honestly, I said this last season, this is my favourite Pep Guardiola team that I've ever seen, because there's an imperfection to it. The imperfection is that Haaland sometimes isn't what a Pep Guardiola centre-forward looks like. The back four are 4 centre-backs effectively now who are really good defenders. They're good on set pieces. You've got obviously 2 wide players today. I think it's the best 2 wide players, Grealish and Foden, who look really fantastic. I really like this team, honestly. I've always liked them, of course. But this team is one that I think I watch in terms of power and strength and good defending. Rodri in midfield's fantastic. And Bernardo Silva, just left him till last. I just thought he was spectacular today, but not in a way which was power or strength or goals or anything that you'd normally associate with that word. Just beautiful football.
This is your podcast, not mine, but Bernardo Silva, who you picked as the player of the game, as I mentioned in the commentary, when we see the City 11, he's the one you can never be sure what his role is going to be. No. Because he really, really does do it all, doesn't he? He held at Arsenal.
Yeah. I mean, he's Pep Guardiola's joker in a positive way, not in a bad way. He's the one that I think he looks at and thinks, I bet if you said to Pep Guardiola, who's your favourite football player? I mean, he's not going to answer it, obviously, in terms of publicly. He'd probably say Bernardo Silva all day long, because he's the purest form of football player that's just wonderful on the ball, controls the game. I used to say, I mean, people sometimes get and disagree with me when I say Paul Scholes was the best Manchester United football player that I played with. The reason I say that is because the control and patience that he would bring to a football match. We've seen Bernardo Silva, the biggest games at the hardest away grounds, and Bernardo Silva gets a grip of the game and just makes it all work. You can't put it into words, you can't see it sometimes even, but when you're out there playing, and we watch it there today, it's just there. And he's not scored 2 goals, he's not got the assists, he's not going to get all the plaudits. The headline tomorrow morning on the back of the newspaper is not going to be Bernardo Silva. And it wasn't for many years David Silva, and it wasn't for many years Paul Scholes or Andrea Pirlo or these players who, you know, connect the team together, Busquets or Xavi, those types of players. They're respected, don't get me wrong, enormously, but they're not the world-class players. They're not the headline grabbers, but they're beautiful things that we should, you know, they do the hardest thing, I think, on a football pitch, which is control the match when it's most difficult, take the ball when it's most difficult. 6 minutes in, United were going some. They looked a real threat. And Bernardo Silva started to play and get his team moving. And that's really important that you do that. Authority, confidence. And I thought today it came from him.
Yeah. So the United squad is what it is. Those are the players United have got. So let me ask you the question. Are they maximising what they have?
No, they're not maximising what they have. They spent £1.61 million, the same as Manchester City. 1.6 million. We saw that. You'll have seen the spending in the last 10 years since Sir Alex Ferguson in the stat pack that we get, just like I have. It's unbelievable. I mean, I was reading that yesterday on my way back from, where was I? I was in London doing Tottenham Palace on Friday night. I was coming back on the train. I started just to have a look at the game and think about the game, and you see the stats that get put in front of you, and you know it. You know they spent a lot of money. But then you think, wow. And then you still see that team out on the pitch today, the back four that starts, Dalot, Maguire, Evans and Lindelof. That's the back four that have started for Manchester United today, having spent that money. I know they've got some injuries. Varane's on the bench, Reguilon's on the bench today. Wan-Bissaka's injured, Martinez is injured. So they have got some problems that you can put down on paper. But honestly, it's a real worry. And I've said it before, there are people who, to be fair, go on television and they'll say that every time Manchester United lose, you blame the Glazer family. But the reality of it is, it isn't going to change whilst you've got this cultural toxicity at the top of the club, this uncertainty. Imagine in any other walk of life. I mean, imagine the Manchester United football department. They're being told that there's another guy going to come in and basically take it over with Dave Brailsford. Imagine what all those people in that football department think. They're all now at this moment in time unsure. And we can sit here and say, get on with it, but take it into your own life if you're unsure at work, if people are undermining you from above. And to be fair, I mean, we need Daniel Radcliffe, not Jim Radcliffe. Honestly. I honestly don't know how it can change. And I also don't know how it can change even if Jim Ratcliffe comes in. As brilliant a businessman as he is, as obviously as passionate about sport as he is, as a minority shareholder, how do you deal with this stadium at $500 million? How do you deal with the $1 billion of debt, with the $800 million of debt and the $300 million that's owed to other clubs? How do you deal with the fact that the football department is only one part of the football club? It's got another load of parts to it. You've got shareholders in New York that want money. You've got the Glazer family who still want money. I don't know how it works for him, because it's a win-win for the Glazer family. If you come and take over the football department and do well, the value of the club rises for them. And if you come in and do badly, then you've just taken the heat off the Glazer family. So I'm still struggling to understand how this is fixed, because I know that it will not be fixed whilst this is in place. It just won't be. We've had 10 years now of this, and it isn't going away. And it's repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. And another manager now will start to get put under problems. I didn't think Erik ten Hag had a particularly great day today, to be honest with you. I didn't. And, ultimately, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had many bad days. Jose Mourinho did. Louis van Gaal did. But we're now getting to the point whereby every manager that comes to Manchester United, we start to think they're the problem at a certain point. We start to think that the players that are being bought for 50, 60, 70 million, even though other clubs want these players, by the way, on the way in, and they choose Manchester United, or Manchester United offer them a better deal, it ends up being a graveyard for them here. There is a cultural thread of negativity and toxicity that runs right through this club that is not going away. And they've not played anybody in the last few weeks. They've struggled against Brentford. They struggled against Copenhagen. They struggled against Sheffield United. So this last few weeks is almost, in some ways, it sort of kids you on a little bit, but don't kid us on that have been here for 10 years watching this. And I don't know how it ends, because Manchester City, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, Villa, Brighton, I've missed a club out. Chelsea will leave out because they're probably in the same category as United. They're all pretty well run now. They're well-run clubs from top to bottom. Manchester United are not a well-run football club, and the owners are the problem.
So are you saying, as someone who loves Manchester United almost as much as life itself, are you saying that if a top player was offered Manchester United and Liverpool or Chelsea or Arsenal or whatever, would you, if you were neutral, advise them at the moment to go elsewhere? Because you've just said this place is a graveyard for fine footballers.
Look, Peter, even though I've said that, even though I'm basically probably thinking that, and my head says that, I can never say publicly that a player shouldn't come and play for this football club, because there's still that kid in me that walks basically up that road there, past those sort of, if you like, little food outlets at the top, that walks down towards the stadium, towards K-Stand over there where I sat as a kid, and thinks that this is magic, this football club, and I'll never not think that. But the reality of it is, at this moment in time, and people say it's like the 80s, it's not. In the 80s, I watched Brian Robson out on that pitch, and Paul McGrath, and Norman Whiteside, and I watched other players of great fire and sturdiness and robustness and brilliant characters that just weren't good enough and weren't as good as Liverpool at the time, or Everton, or the other clubs, Arsenal sometimes, that won leagues. But I saw something. But for 10 years, I've not seen a lot here. I've not seen a lot. And these are not bad lads, by the way, that are in this dressing room. They're not. I'm not having a go at them in that sense. But there is a real feeling of low, of depression in the club. And that, I'm sorry, if we had come into this club in the current state, in the current sort of environment, we wouldn't have been successful. As talented as the group were that I came through with some of the best players that have played at this club, you know, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, David Beckham, wonderful players. But if they came into this environment here today, honestly, they'd be set up for failure. So I don't blame these players anymore. You can't do. I said something the other day. If the children are misbehaving and poorly behaved and ill-disciplined for many, many years, you eventually look up and think, it's got to be coming from above that. Yeah, of course you take responsibility. And the last 10 minutes, I hated what I saw in this last 10 minutes out on that football pitch. You know, Marcus Rashford, to be fair, a fantastic player. He looks like he's sulking on the way off. Anthony's shaking his head on the bench. Bruno's the captain and he's walking around. You know exactly what he's going to do in the last 10 minutes. It's almost like you can read it like a book. You know, he's going to go and get butts. He's going to win. He's going to kick someone. You know, it's all for show. There's nothing there really about it. He's a massively talented player. You know, he's Manchester United's best player and someone who's got goals and assists written all over him. Deserves to play in a great team. Deserves to play in a fantastic team. Eric Ten Hag's a fantastic coach. We know that. Let's not dispute that. Jose Mourinho's a fantastic coach. We can't dispute that. What we have to dispute is why they keep failing at this football club. Why is that? Answer that question. It isn't because of one player. It isn't because of their ability. Yeah, they can all take the responsibility. They can all take the medicine and they can all sort of, if you like, stand up and say, I didn't achieve what I should have achieved. We're talking about cultural failure. And
So,
that's it.
That's really interesting, and in a way we can wrap it up with that. The kind of universal question about Manchester United that you ask yourself. So if you were the richest man in the world or a nation state or whatever, and you were going to come in and you could buy 100%, never mind 25%, you could buy 100% of Manchester United, where would you start?
We'll start with the very basics, to be fair, Peter, which is that Manchester United have currently got a stadium that doesn't even meet the test of being the best 10 in the UK. This was the semi-final stadium in Euro 96.
Gary, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
That won't win you the football match.
No. I'm talking about excellence, Peter. Setting the environment foundations for excellence. It does. Having the best stadium, the best training ground, best practices, best academy. And then you might not win a football match, Peter, because football's volatile and football's erratic. But if you set the tempo of the foundations being in place, the best fan experience, good affordability, all the things that are really important in the fabric of a football club, good people in the boardroom, good owners that communicate to the fan base, good players that want to play for the club, eventually it'll come right because the foundations are right. The foundations here are all wrong. They're all wrong. What you do as an owner is create an environment for people to come in every day and be successful. And then you trust the process of good recruitment, of patience, of time, of the fan base, of everything that's here, and eventually it will come. It's not a quick fix. It's not a quick fix if a nation state comes in. It's not a quick fix if Jim Ratcliffe comes in. I don't expect a quick fix. I don't even actually expect, to be honest with you, a winning team all the time. I grew up from 1975 to 1993 and never saw Manchester United win a league. And I used to sit in there every single year and think, this is the year, like we all did. And do you know something, though? I always loved it. That ground's empty. Sometimes it was empty in the 80s and in the 70s and 80s, but let's be clear. But what I would never accept as an owner of this football club is having a second-rate stadium, not being the best stadium in the world or best stadium in this country. I would not accept that. Manchester United have to have the best stadium. They have to have the best training ground. They have to make sure they don't have £1 billion of debt and owe the most money that any other club in this country owes, £300 million to other clubs on players. All these things that are fundamentally wrong. So if there's the richest man in the world, I'd wipe the debt. I'd let all the money go into the club. All the things that would happen. So for me, I respect the fact that the Glazers own this football club, but their time is up. They are not welcome here at Manchester United anymore. They haven't been, to be fair, for 20 years whilst I was playing. And people will ask me the question, why weren't you shouting whilst I was playing? 2 reasons. One, as a Manchester United football player under Sir Alex Ferguson, you didn't shout. And secondly, we were winning and we were getting on with it, and you didn't think they were the problem at the time if you were a player at the club. And I wasn't, to be fair, into the side of business that I am now and seeing it from a different perspective. What we've seen in the last 10 years with Super League and other such things as well is that this is definitely a massive problem. You know, we knew when we were going up to Newcastle that Mike Ashley was a problem because it was depressing every time we went up there and the same things kept happening. We know when the connection isn't there between the owners, the coaching staff, the executive, the fan base, the players, a club is broken. And this is not a rant. This is just absolute fact. Because I speak to people inside on this club who've been here for a long time, who've been here for a short time. And it's wrong. It's wrong. They have to free up. There's some brilliant people in this club who at this moment in time are literally have their hands tied behind their backs, or they're so bound by pressure and negativity that's basically created by the ownership. It's not by the media. Everything that I'm saying here, and they want it saying, they need it saying. It needs calling out. It has to be called out. I wouldn't be speaking up if it didn't. And this is not a personal crusade. I'm so happy in my own personal life doing what I'm doing. It's a fantastic life that I have to be able to do it. And I come here and I want to see, I don't expect to see a Manchester United that are successful every year or winning leagues, but I don't expect them to go to the depths that they have. And they are at the depths now. And that's not just about performance on the pitch. That is about the feeling in the club, the feeling in the stadium and the facilities itself. It's not right, and it needs sorting very quickly, and I hope it is.
That's compelling, Gary. That's really interesting what you have to say, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of Manchester United supporters who did leave here early today, who may be listening to this on their way home and look, feel aligned to you.
And do you know something? The exact opposite of that, Manchester City, brilliantly run, fantastic in terms of the decision-making, their recruitment, the idea, the way they play, the manager, the players. You know, everything is spot on in terms of what they do. Now, they've got those charges over their heads which are looming large, and we've had the Everton situation. So they have to get clear of them, else they've got a massive problem, and I'll come down on them like a ton of bricks. But innocent till proven guilty. Let's see what happens. The Premier League have to shove that forward. But if they do shove that forward, then they do get found guilty, they'll be in big trouble because everything that they've actually achieved in this last 7 or 8 years will definitely be tainted. However, when you watch them as a football operation on a pitch, they're absolutely outstanding, and you have to hold it. You know, they deserve to win that game today. Brilliant to watch. Manchester United fans are respectful of good football. They will hate the fact that Liverpool win leagues in the last few years and that City win leagues and win the treble. But you have to admire what you've seen out there today from a really, really top football team.
You truly do. The contrast was huge. Gary, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is fabulous opinion. I hope everybody else has enjoyed it, and the Gary Neville Podcast will be back with more very soon.
Well, they either will or they won't. But they're having it.